Uganda's central bank governor said that the country will not be jumping onto the Africa's sovereign bandwagon. But for more on that and so much more, we have Roy Daniels. He's the head of Africa trading at RMB. Roy, perhaps let's pick up with the interest rate decision. Unchanged, 8.5%, but there were inflationary pressures. Your view with regards to the decision that was taken by the central bank?
It does surprise us a little bit. I mean, we thought there might be, I didn't see the speech, to be honest, and the publication, so I would assume that there's some talk about, concerns about inflation and worries about the upward trend in rates. My concern being that they don't fall into the same trap they did about 2.5 years ago, where they look at the rates and they determine that we will keep our benchmark rate unchanged despite the fact that there's high overnight rates, there's high inflation, and they try and sort of protect themselves from that by thinking they can just keep their central bank rate unchanged. They need to look at it and need to react to it quicker than they did the last time. 2.5 years ago, they fell into the trap of denying it. We had rate hikes, 400 basis points, 350 basis points. So we got into a bit of a panic mode in Kenya. Currency weakened dramatically. They need to avoid that. They need to see the inflation rates as signs and the overnight rate as signs that rates are ticking up slightly, and let's protect ourselves against any sort of big move that we're forced to make later.
We also have been seeing the currency under pressure, though. The central bank, has the measures that they've taken, are they enough, or should we really not be worried about this weakness that we've been seeing in the shilling?
I think we should be. I think when we saw the inflation number print and we saw the overnight rates 13–14%, the central bank surprised us by coming in to supply liquidity to the market. Now that gives the market a chance to then go short the Kenyan shilling, which surprised us. We thought they'd keep that tighter, maybe hike their rates. Those are the moves we expected. They've acted a little bit out of sync as to what we think. But look, I'm no central banker, and neither are the guys on our trading desk. So, they do have their own plans as to how they want to do it and their own views on it. It did surprise us. I would think that they're at a point now with inflation and overnight rate points to the fact they need to tighten up slightly. They need to think about raising that benchmark rate.
Now, let's talk about the very successful Eurobond that we had in Kenya. Seen a number of other African countries take to the international debt markets. You've sat here, we've had that discussion. But the Ugandan central bank governor says, no, we're not going to get on that bandwagon. It's bad news. Why? What's the rationale behind him even saying this?
So let me start by saying hooray.
So you're in agreement?
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
It's been a concern of ours now for many times. We've sat here talking and we've said, look, it was a good thing when we started it and the central bank started it. Rates were nice and low, cheap way to borrow funds. I think there's been too many. So African continent exposure to sovereign debt is now growing all the time and a concern. There'll be no debt write-offs. So in the past we've had these loans, we had the debt write-offs, which has helped them. That's not going to happen this time. You're going to have to repay the money you borrowed. There's no soft landing on this. So the amount that we keep borrowing is growing all the time. Our ability to service these debts becomes a concern through Africa. We're not issuing local currency bonds. So from that, there's no investment into the country. There's no buying of the local currency. So if I issue a bond in Ghana shillings, yes, or in Nigerian naira, and it's a local currency bond, people have to sell the dollars to then buy the currency. So create demand for the currency. It helps the currency a little bit, and then they buy the local currency bonds. When we do the sovereign bond, it's dollars for bonds. There's no buying of the local currency. And my concern is that when we get under pressure, and when the first person bolts through the door, that door becomes very small when the rest of them need to get out of there. Yes. So it's a concern, the monitoring. So I think what Uganda has said, what the governor has said there, makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a good stance to say, well, we're not going to go that route. We need to do these things. My views, I like those infrastructure bonds that they issue, and especially the ones that are in Kenya.
So that's the answer to this. Instead of going to the international debt markets at the moment,
let's do
infrastructure bonds. Is that the reason why we're seeing Zambia and Ghana now running to the IMF to get funding?
So I think that the Zambian pictures are very different to the Ghana picture. Okay. So the Zambian central bank is going to the IMF for advice, and are we doing it right? Do you like the way we're progressing? Ghana's situation is very different. It's our view that Ghana is now the last chance saloon. They have to have the IMF coming in to help them. The IMF has to give them funding. That's going to come with very strict conditions. Ghana's kind of, I don't want to paint a wrong picture about Ghana. I mean, as a group, that we're very interested in opening in Ghana and looking in that direction as our new sort of country to invest in. So we don't say that everything's wrong with Ghana. but Ghana is a bit of Africa's mini Greece at this stage. So it's got problems. Yeah, it's got problems, and if we're going to take help from somebody, it's going to come with conditions. Are we able to live up to all those conditions? So what happened in Greece, got the bailout, the local people were in the streets, they were saying, look, we can't take these cuts, we can't take cuts in healthcare, we can't take the fact that the pensionable age is now hiked, is raised to 65, whatever, so all those things. There will come conditions. Don't forget, Ghana has a big public sector wage bill. It's given itself a 14% increase to government officials. It's got the fuel subsidy that it's reintroduced in the country. So those things are probably the three things that the IMF is going to say that has to go or be cut. So there will be conditions with it. Zambia is not in that situation at all.
So what's Zambia's problem here? You mentioned all the situations, all the issues that come with Ghana. Why is now Zambia running to the IMF?
I think you keep saying running to the IMF. I think that they're
requesting.
So Ghana's run to the IMF because they need help. I think in Zambia's case, they're going to the IMF and say, listen, you know, we are a bit stretched on our borrowings. This is what we've done. Are you guys happy with what we're doing? So I think they're creating a situation whereby if it gets there, we've got a friend in you, and they can go and speak to them. Ghana's case, they need that friend desperately.
Okay. Roy, thank you so much for breaking that down for us and making us aware that these sovereign bonds are not necessarily the end-all or be-all. Structural or infrastructure bonds are the answer.
That's the way.
That was Roy Daniels, Head of Africa Trading at RMB.